Welcome back to the Pursuit of Progress podcast. As always, my name is Adam, here with my co-host Ben. And today we're diving into one of the most underrated secrets to success, mastering the monotony. It's not the glamorous moments that define greatness. It's the power of showing up every single day, doing the small, unexciting tasks that most people avoid. In this episode today, we're going to uncover why consistency is the real game changer, how successful people embrace the grind, and why sticking to the basics can lead to extraordinary results. Whether you're chasing big goals, building better habits, or just looking for a spark to keep going, this episode will give you the tools and the mindset you need to thrive in the day-to-day grind. So again, whether you're tuning in for the first time or you've been with us since day one, let's get ready to rethink what it means to stay consistent and unlock the power of the process. Ben, how are you doing, buddy?
I am doing awesome. And just listening to that intro there, wow, I'm fired up. I love
man.
talking about this, and I can't wait to jump right in here.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and do that. Let's start off. We've guys, just so you know, we've had 7 different topics to discuss with you on this today. And Ben, I would love for you just to kick us off with number 1.
Yeah, I'll start off with number 1. And number 1 is that success is found in boring work. A lot of times the path to success, it's not flashy. It's built through repetitive, often mundane tasks. And the example that I always like to talk about when talking about this exact thing, right now, my daughter is a competitive runner in high school, and she really wants to take her game to the next level. She had an awesome year at Wheat Ridge High School as a freshman. Now, though, she went from being one of the best in the league, she wants to be one of the best in the state. And to do that, she's really increased her training. And what she's doing right now is she's running between 6 to 7 miles per night. And a lot of times I'll be there with her, and we're running in the dark, when it's cold, when it's windy, by ourselves. And we're doing that night after night after night. There's no spotlight. There's no one there cheering for us. And I tell her every single night, this is what the pursuit of greatness looks like. There's no one around. There's no one here. It's just you and me being our best, doing something that we really don't want to do. Tonight we ran. It was 35 degrees out. It was cold. It was windy. The wind was, 40 miles an hour in our face for 3 miles. It wasn't pleasant, but we did it anyways. And that is what the pursuit looks like.
Yeah, on that cross country, story specific with your daughter, this current season that just wrapped up, first of all, congrats to her and to you as her, coach and support. But, thinking about how this season, almost every single race that you guys had was in warmer weather. It was kind of a fluke year where, every weekend or every Friday, whenever the races were each week, seemed to be a, beautiful, sunny, warm day. Some days actually I think were hot, where that was more of an issue, just the heat exhaustion more than being cold. But I hope that next year, after all of this additional hard work she's doing, all these nightly, reps that nobody else is doing in this cold, windy, crummy weather, she's going to have some races next season that catch 99% of the athletes off guard. And it's just another night she can kind of come back to this moment that she had tonight, or, every night right now with the bad weather and the wind, and just use that as fuel, just as experience. It's not something that intimidates her like probably the majority of her competitors.
Yeah. And when you can say that you've run every single day, whether it's 110 degrees out or -10, you've run in the heat, you've run in the cold, you've run when you felt good, you've run when you felt terrible. What happens is it just turns you into a very strong runner, and more importantly, just a very powerful, formidable person. And that's my other message to her. The reason that training is so important, yes, we want to have success and accomplish some of your goals, but the main reason is that what it will make of you. And if you learn these skills to do things that you don't want to do, and to get yourself to go run when it's cold and windy and miserable conditions outside, do you think that's going to help you when you have to go make the cold call at your job, or you have to go have the uncomfortable conversation? When you trained your mind and body to do things consistently that you don't want to do in one area of your life, you can then transfer those to other areas of your life. So who you become in the process that is the gift. The gift is the adversity, the resilience. There's a Bill Walsh quote that I love, the old San Francisco 49ers general manager and coach. And one thing that he said is that champions behave like champions before they become champions. They have a winning standard of performance before they become winners. So what he's saying is that you have to behave like a champion long enough. And once you've behaved like a champion for long enough, well, what happens? You become a champion.
Love that. Yep. There's nothing glamorous about it, guys. Just once again, just reiterating that first point we made, success is found in the boring work. Just really remember that specifically and think about that next time, maybe tomorrow when you're doing something that isn't fun, but it just needs to be done. And as long as you've identified that task as something that's providing you with high results, meaning it's a good use of your time. You guys are wanting to kind of fall back on that topic. One of our previous episodes, if you guys look up the Pareto principle, 80-20 principle, we go in a lot more in depth on that too, as far as identifying what tasks are most important.
Yeah, and just one other quick talking point I wanted to share before we move on to the next point. I share this with my daughter as well, and I call them separation days. And so the days that you don't feel like running, or the days that perhaps everyone else isn't running, there might be a blizzard outside and it's negative 20 degrees. Your initial reaction would be, wow, I'm not going to run today. I'm not going to go out and train because of the conditions. A lot of people have a very negative perspective on those days that are really extreme heat, extreme wind, extreme cold, because they don't want to go train in those conditions. And I'm sharing with her, you should be thankful when those days happen, because those are the separation days where the rest of the competition, most of them, is not training. So when you go out and you face the elements and you face that adversity, you're actually separating yourself from the competition.
Love that. That's really cool. Well, let's jump into number 2. So the second one we prepared today is why people struggle with consistency. So, this allure of just the instant gratification versus the long-term grind is a very big part of this one. And I think just really understanding that, your mindset of what is most important. So for example, Ben, I know you have something in here about the wrong environment, about kind of cleaning up your diet versus how you're doing that. Share a little bit on that one.
I recently got a health heart exam done, and although my heart was healthy, like there's definitely some things that I can do better and improve on. And I'm 42 years old now. And part of the reason, just kind of full disclosure here, I had like a small amount of calcium buildup in one of my arteries for my heart, which is not good. Some plaque. And hearing that news and getting those results from the heart scan, I mean, I was kind of depressed actually, because I consider myself a very healthy person. I run, I work out. I've had a good diet. It's never been great. It's never been terrible. But now I'm really intentional about making some changes. And to do that, I need to put myself in the right environment. So at home, I'm eliminating foods in my cabinet and in my refrigerator that have high amounts of saturated fat, because that is what, that's one of the number one drivers that can clog arteries. And so, for example, I used to drink like the creamy almond milk. And even though it's much healthier than cow milk or whole milk, it has higher fat contents than just like the regular almond milk. So cleaning that out of the fridge, cleaning out some of the snacks, like some of the granola bars. Again, not a terrible snack, but I could have an apple instead of a granola bar. And so just making sure that I'm cleaning out my cabinet, my kitchen cabinet and the refrigerator and the things that I'm around to create a healthy environment, just to make it easier for me to achieve my goals and have success, where I'm not having that temptation put right in front of me day after day. Because if I am, I'm going to slip up and I'm going to fail.
And I think the longer you start doing that for, also you become a little bit more ingrained in just the basic, whatever, as far as just going back to this concept of monotony, having the same snack every single day, or only having a few different things that you kind of just resort to because that's all that's available in your environment, in your pantry, in your refrigerator. Just not always needing something different. You kind of, I think, you train your body to be used to the monotonous, and you kind of look at food from a different perspective, at least with the food example.
Yeah, and when you've never done something like this before, you've never put yourself through this type of test, it can be challenging. But I have to remember what I've, what other tests have I gone through? Well, I gave up alcohol 3 years ago, and that was a challenge for about 60 days, but your body will adapt. When I gave up alcohol, I had this limiting false belief that I needed alcohol to be social, that I needed alcohol for social gatherings and to have fun. And if I was going to go to a Rockies game or some type of social event or networking event, I needed alcohol to mingle. And those were all lies. I have more fun without drinking alcohol than I ever did when I did drink. I feel better. I know that I feel better about my health. And so kind of same thing here. One of the things that helps me with my motivation is I remind myself that the actions that the 42-year-old Ben are taking today are most appreciated by the 60, 70, and even 100-year-old Ben. So the things that I'm doing today, my future self, 20, 30, 50 years from now, is thanking me. And that gives me confidence, it gives me comfort, and it helps me stay on task and on purpose.
Yeah, you need to have some level of a why behind, a reason behind why you're doing what you're doing. So like for you, having your kids, wanting to be a healthy, centurion at 100 years old, just being able to be at that position in 30, 40, 50 years, and that figuring out what that why is to each person, that's going to be different for everybody. But I think when you have that, when you've identified that why, it really helps keep that motivation and allows you to be okay with, again, this monotonous type activity that is what needs to be done to be the most successful.
Yeah, and I've shared this before on this podcast with our viewers, with you, but I read a lot of biographies. And right now I'm reading the biography of JP Morgan. And when you read a lot of biographies, a lot of these biographies are from individuals that were born in the early 1800s and died, John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, JP Morgan. These are all biographies that I've read in the last year. And what you realize is that we're all here for a limited time. And that may sound very obvious, but when you're reading someone's biography, you're literally starting off when they were born, and then you go through their teenage years and their adolescence years. You read about their marriage, their family, their business career, the mistakes they made, and then all of a sudden they're dead. And it's it's an 800-page book, so that's a lot. But we're talking about someone's life. And it's like, sometimes I think to myself, you know what, where would I be? Like, where would my story be in this person's biography? Well, if the book's 800 pages, I'd be on about page 400 right now. And so it's just like, I think of things like that to kind of help give me a different perspective.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever read a book that's 800 pages. So I might be more at like a 400-page book. So I don't know how many pages the Boxcar Children were, about 100 pages.
Well, that's generation, though. That's generational, the Boxcar Children.
That is. So our third one that we put together is all about building systems for success. And again, guys, talking about the topic today about monotonous and how that's monotonous tasks, monotonous activities. And that's really where successful people shine, is they're really good at these basic things and being okay with doing the monotonous things day in and day out, month after month, year after year, in order to really put that into better front and center with your business, with your personal goals. Having systems behind these different things to really help you with your chances of success, and just, again, scaling up the quality and just the proficiency and the excellence of whatever it is that you're working on. So just really look at whatever it is in your lives that you're trying to improve upon, and think about what maybe types of systems, processes you could develop to really just put you in a better position, or at least the highest chances to be successful.
Yeah, and this is very, very important. Now, the one thing that I always want to tell people when it comes to systems is it sounds so complicated. It sounds very fancy, and it's, your average person will, what does that mean? Developing a system, or like, how do I do this? It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. A system can be, you can create one level systems, you can create multi-facet systems. But, here's an example of a system that I have. So I was having a problem at my house with just all of the mail. I mean, mail just never stops. Perhaps some of you can relate. And it actually angers me because a lot of it, 95% of the mail that I get is just a complete waste. It's just such a waste of paper and a waste of resources. You think about the amount of trees that are getting cut down. It's very, very disturbing. But so what I have at my house is I would have all these envelopes that I hadn't gone through. I just had stacks of mail everywhere, in the kitchen, in the dining room. I'd have stacks of mail up in my bedroom, in my master bathroom. And so recently, a couple weekends ago, my girlfriend Grace and we developed a system to where I can manage my mail better. So I went over to Home Goods. I bought a basket, and this basket had 3 different layers. So there was a top layer, a medium layer, and then a bottom. And I brought and the basket also has wheels, so you can move it around the house very easily. So I have that downstairs now, right by the dining room, and then I moved the shredder downstairs as well. So all of the mail immediately goes into the top basket. And at that point, I review everything. If it's not urgent, it immediately goes into the shredder. If it's something that needs to be reviewed, I then put it in the middle basket, but I don't review it right then and there. I'm just sorting the mail. And once a week, I'll then go through all of the mail that's in the second basket there. And most of that will also end up in the shredder. Every once in a while, though, there's something that really needs my attention. And then that will go in the lowest basket for me to grab when I have sufficient time to really sit down and analyze it. And the benefit of that is that it's really helped me clean up all of this mail around the house. It's helped me get much more organized. And then I also have the ability to go recycle all of this paper that's now just sitting in my shredder versus, throwing some of it in the trash, getting rid of it other ways. So there's just been so many benefits. So that's an example of a system for me. There's also other examples where another example of a system that we have together would be at 6 a.m., we meet for the gym.
And I would even take that a step further and say that in the gym specific, or for everybody else that works out in a weightlifting type environment, having your system being your splits. So every Monday we do shoulders, every Tuesday we do chest, every Wednesday we do back. Anyways, just having a system for success outlined where there's no guesswork. There's none of this, well, I don't feel like doing legs today, let's just do arms. You've built a system to help you succeed. So systems don't have to carry with them this technical type connotation where you think you have to, create an Excel spreadsheet. It also can be just setting yourself up for success by just having more of a process behind what it is that you're trying to achieve. So other than the word system, I would just recommend you guys also, if that's causing you some anxiety thinking about systems, just think about processes that you can implement.
Yeah, you want to find things and create systems or processes that don't take brain power, and the goal is to have your behavior become automatic. Who was that? Was that Mark Zuckerberg that,
With the
essentially
t-shirt.
now dresses in the exact same t-shirt, and like, I can't remember if it was him or like Jeff Bezos or something, but one of those like really, really wealthy guys.
Like
Essentially,
Zuckerberg.
yeah, he wears the same thing every day, the same t-shirt, the same pair of jeans, like literally not the same pair, but he has 20 pairs of the same pair of jeans and 20, pairs of t-shirts. He grabs it, puts his chain on, puts the same pair of jeans, he doesn't have to think about it. He just puts it on and he goes.
And I just remembered, I think it's actually Steve Jobs. I think he was the one that always just wore a black turtleneck and jeans. And I'm seeing a consistency with this monotonous wardrobe process with a lot of the wealthy people. So maybe I need to start doing that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So the fourth one before we take our break is reframing the monotony. So just changing that perspective and just really just understanding how these repetitive tasks really can be looked at as a privilege and just a step closer to mastering whatever it is you're trying to do. So just, not looking at monotony as boring, but looking at monotony more as just an opportunity to just have one less thing to worry about, to work towards your pursuit of progress. Just winning the day, just focusing on these small daily wins. I think, Ben, you might have added that note if you want to elaborate on that one a little bit.
Yeah, I think we talk about compound interest a lot, and all of whether it's running, whether it's behavior, I tell my daughter, every run that you do, it compounds on the last run. So the more consistent, the more that you do, you're going to have more runs that compound on one another compared to the athlete who's only running 4 days a week. If you're running 7 days a week, you're going to have a lot of compounding. And my YouTube, for example, right now I'm going through this stretch for like the last 6 weeks. I haven't had any videos that have really popped or taken off. I had one video about a year ago that had 130,000 views. I've had a couple that have had 10,000 plus, but my last 4, 5, or 6 have all had less than 1,000 views. And so it's frustrating when you hit some of those really high view marks and then you kind of go back down to, not a lot of people are watching or engaging. But I have to remind myself the reason I'm doing this is because I believe I have a message that needs to be heard. I believe that I'm sharing something that can really change people's lives. And I'm doing it in a way that I actually think I'm improving. And so I don't feel like the results that I'm getting are necessarily indicative of the growth that I'm experiencing. And I have that dialogue, that inner dialogue, just talking to myself. And it's just a matter of just keep going, improve on what you can improve on. If there's something that you think you can do better, do it better, but just keep going. Don't be so overly focused on the results and the view counts and the view hours. Be more focused on just getting better. And that's what I try and do.
Yep. Just making those small daily deposits. Some are going to have a big ROI, some won't, but you're still making those daily deposits. Let's go ahead and start off with our sponsor of the week. So our sponsorship this week is from Roadrunner Property Care. Transform your home into a profitable vacation rental with Roadrunner Property Care. Their expert team takes the stress out of hosting so you can focus on what matters. If you're ready to earn more, visit them at roadrunnertucson.com today. Again, that's Roadrunner Tucson. Great sponsor, one of my favorites, my personal favorites myself. So if you guys haven't checked them out, definitely look into Roadrunner Property Care in Tucson, Arizona.
And you know what? I have a stay at a Roadrunner Property Care home coming up in the next week. I'm actually going to be driving down to Tucson in a couple of days and staying at one of their properties. So very excited, looking forward to that. Beep, beep. That's right.
So let's go ahead and jump into number 5. Ben, I'll let you take the lead on this one. The topic is consistency versus intensity.
That's right. Topic number 5, consistency versus intensity. And so, think of it like this. There's the person, it's kind of the tortoise versus the hare. We've all heard that analogy. They're in a race together and the tortoise moves very, very slow, but he just takes one step at a time. The hare or the bunny rabbit sprints off, gets a huge lead, but then his focus is elsewhere. By the end of the race, the turtle ends up winning. And it's because of those consistent daily steps. So a lot of times the winner is not the one that is the most talented or the strongest or the most intense. It's the one that's the most consistent. It's the one that's the most disciplined. And I'm going to share another example with my daughter since we're on the running theme. So one of my goals with her as she got into running is that first I want her to get used to consistency. So when she was in middle school, she said that she wanted to start running. And I said, you know what, let's do this. Let's start running every day, but we're going to run very small distances. So she literally started running a half mile. That's nothing. A half mile's down to the end of the block and back. But here's the thing. We did that every single day. And then for a month. And then the next month, we increased that to a mile. And then we increased it to 1.25 miles, and then a mile and a half, and then 2 miles. Well, guess what? She ran 400 straight days before she had an off day. She wasn't running outrageous amounts, but what she had to do first was learn how to be consistent. And so that's what she had to learn first. I have to learn how to be consistent, what it takes. It's not about, do I want to, or do I feel like it, or what are the weather conditions? I am going to do this because it needs to get done. I'm going to go do this because this is a goal that I have. I'm going to go do this because this is going to make me a stronger, more powerful person. Well, now that she's gotten used to the consistency over the last year and a half, now she is starting to increase her intensity. But intensity only matters if the foundation is consistency. So first you have to have the consistency, and then you can build the intensity. That's my personal opinion.
Yep, I 1000% agree. I would also say that the more consistent you are, the more efficient you become. Where, if this is a work-related goal or a task that you're making this about, doing something once a week and spending, the first 10 minutes kind of getting familiarized again with what it is you're even doing, getting that slow kind of build up to before you even get into the actual work that needs to be done, as opposed to doing this every single morning. Not only are you probably doing it for less amount of time every day, since you're being consistent about it, you're also just being much more efficient with that time. It's another example of that compounding interest talk that we always bring up on our different episodes of The Pursuit of Progress, where it might not seem like a huge difference on day 1, day 5, day 10, but by day 100, day 250, day 400 for your daughter, I bet you for her, to go from, running a 7-minute mile to going down to a 6-minute. I just think that there's a lot more progress made once you become more efficient, and you become more efficient by doing this consistently over a long period of time.
Yeah, and that's so important what you mentioned, just the mental roadblocks too.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be sitting down and doing homework, for example. I hated doing that as a kid because I didn't do it every single day. I only did it once or twice a week, but just the process of sitting down and opening my textbook and starting the homework, it was like a 45-minute process for me just to do that.
And that was before social media.
That's right. Have you read Atomic Habits by James Clear?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that he talks about. When you're building out a new habit, just start very, very small. Start so small that you almost can't help do the habit. And another analogy that I use is I've gone through periods in my life where I've been in shape and I've been out of shape, where I've gone to the gym and I've not gone to the gym. And if I've been out of the gym for a prolonged time, which hasn't been recently, I've been very consistent the last like 6 or 7 years. But there's been periods where I started going to the gym again after like I'd not lifted a weight in 2 years. And how I always started is I would just drive to the gym, walk in, and sit down and stretch for like 10 minutes and then leave. And I
Did you
would
ever
do
just
that
do
for
it?
a week. I would do that for a week just to get in the habit of driving to the gym. And then the next week I would do the same thing, and then I would go lift 1 machine. And then the following week I'd go lift 2 machines, and then I'd lift for a half hour, and then I'd lift for an hour. So kind of just slowly building out the intensity, but focusing on the consistency.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that other, tagline, work smarter, not harder. Well, what about working smarter and harder? I'm imagining there might be some of our listeners or viewers hearing this and saying, well, why don't you be consistent and be intense and have intensity? And I just wanted to touch on that. I do agree that you need to be always pushing to do more and being more efficient with your time and your effort. But I think just the point here is just that if you're only doing it occasionally, you're going to have a very hard time being as effective, as efficient. And I think with the intensity part, it's kind of, I think of it as you're working really hard by being intense, but you're really maybe not being that productive or that efficient. It's really just the intensity is almost a limiting factor. in
So you're
the way
saying
we wrote
that you'd
this.
be better off being much more consistent and less intense versus the person that is very intense, but they're also much less consistent.
Yeah. I just wanted to, again, just touch on, though, that you still need to really always be pushing yourself to do more. Don't get so, comfortable in doing just the spare minimum. Like Ben's example with Natia, his daughter, you're not only going to run half a mile forever, you're pushing yourself over time to do more and more and more. And that's how truly successful people build and accomplish great things.
I read Ed Milet's book, The Power of One More, and he somehow turned the title of that book into like a 200-page book. But what I took away from that is that I always share just with everyone that I, work out with or I run with. If your goal is to go run 6 miles, go run 6.5. Because if you run 6.5, you're going to hit 6. And then if you hit 6.5 every day, well, all of a sudden you've run 3 or 4 more miles that week than what you would have. If your goal is to do 10 reps of bench press, aim for 11. You're pushing yourself. And if you're always kind of doing that one more, then you're guaranteed to hit the result. Whatever your real result is, you're guaranteed to hit that.
Mm-hmm. So let's go to number 6. So the 6th one is, we kind of talked about a similar one earlier, but number 6 is tools to stay consistent. So on this one, we'll share with you guys a few specific examples. The one that I'll bring up that I'm not using at the moment, but I think was definitely valuable in the past was there's all sorts of different, calorie counters when it comes to your dieting and just your fitness. Maybe you're training for a bodybuilding show, or maybe you're just trying to track your macronutrients, your calories, all that good stuff. Just having that tool does 2 things, in my opinion. One, it allows you to have a KPI or a key performance indicator. It gives you something that then is measurable. And my second point of this is one of my favorite, kind of taglines or just things to remember is if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So if you don't have tools at your fingertips and the ability to actually black and white, clear as day, see that you are actually improving, you are actually getting better at whatever it is, without having that and just saying, yeah, I think I'm doing better, but if you don't really know for sure, the level of growth you're going to have is going to be much less than if you actually have something that's very definitive that can steer you towards always progress.
Yeah, and this is another one that's been life-changing for me, and that's having an accountability partner.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who is willing to show up with you and where your goals are as important to them as what they are to you. And so when you have an accountability partner, someone that's willing to show up with you and for you and help hold you accountable, I mean, that really is life-changing. You and I do that every day at the gym. We show up for ourselves, but more importantly, we show up for each other. And we keep that momentum going. I'm doing the same thing with my daughter and her running. I always say that her secret weapon is me. Not because she's putting all the work in. I'm just helping, I'm just supporting her. She's not going to have to go out there on her own and run in miserable conditions because I'm going to be right next to her running with her, doing the same work. So she doesn't feel alone. So I'm suffering with her just like we are in the gym. And along that same line, I know that you've heard me share this story, the Bo Eason story from his book, There's No Plan B for Your A Game. He went to a very small high school in California. And at the time that he was there was not a single other kid that had ever gone and played in the NFL. He was on the high school football team. So in the history of that high school, not one kid had ever gone to the NFL. After he graduated, after his graduating class, there's never been another kid to play in the NFL. In his graduating class, though, the kids that were on his team, there were 6 kids that played in the NFL. How can you explain that? No one has ever played in the NFL before or after, but on that specific team, you had 6 kids that went to the NFL. I mean, it's mind-blowing. Isn't that powerful?
Yeah.
The reason, though, is because you had one kid with a really big goal who was doing it consistently that inspired others, and then they shared the workload together and helped hold each other accountable and did the work together, and they all benefited tremendously compared to what they would have been able to do on their own.
I love that. Yeah, that's powerful. That is, and that, guys, that is a great book. If you aren't familiar with it, again, it's by Bo Eason, Eason. There's no plan B for your A game. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Yep. All right, well, let's close this out with the seventh, the final part to this topic on being the most successful through the monotonous tasks, your day-to-day tasks that you're doing that are just the simple, basic things that you don't necessarily want to do, but need to happen. And that's just this ripple effect of consistency. This can pertain to fitness, business, relationships. Any of these really still benefit from the ripple effect of just being consistent with whatever area of life you're working towards. I know, Ben, you're a big fan, obviously, of college football, and Nick Saban's, I think, for both of us, somebody that we've really admired and looked up to from a leadership standpoint. Tell us a little bit about his quote that you shared in our notes and just how that plays to this.
Yeah, and I don't know if he said this originally. I don't think he did, but I do think that he has made this famous. And he was a big believer, and he constantly shared this, that how you do anything is how you do everything. And there have been people over the years that have butted heads with me on that, saying that, well, if you're successful in one area of your life, it doesn't mean that you're going to have success in every area of your life. Or if you're, achievement focused here, it doesn't mean that you're going to have all of this achievement, in these other areas. And it's like, I could understand, but the message is that it's about the approach. How you approach one thing is how you're going to approach everything. Let me share this analogy. This is a true story. My daughter, for her birthday a couple of years ago, there was kind of a friend of a friend's mom that was there. And this mom, we went to Elitch Gardens. She sat down and she wanted a snack. So we were at Elitch Gardens here in Denver. She got a snack. So the snack was funnel cake. It was a funnel cake that she got. On the funnel cake, she put powdered sugar. That wasn't enough, though. She then had them put chocolate syrup, sprinkles, and M&Ms. And there was cherries and whipped cream on top of that. And I just sat there. And I'm not shaming this person in any way, but it's such an eye opener because I was just thinking to myself as I was watching this person eat this, can you do something like that and eat like that and then have incredible discipline in another area of your life? Can that person eat that type of food in that manner and then just be extremely structured and disciplined and healthy in another? No, she's not. I'm sorry if that offends anyone, but no, I mean, that is all that I need to know about that person right there. And I'm not saying that from a judgmental perspective on that individual. I'm talking about the behavior. So when you're undisciplined in this behavior and you have no regard for your health or your calories or whatever else, it's not like you're going to go be super disciplined in these other areas of your life.
If you guys want to try something that maybe you're already doing this, but if you're not, something that I think is a very great, easy, free way to train yourself and really prove this value to yourself, prove that this truly does matter. If you don't currently make your bed every morning, just start with that. Make your bed in the morning every single day. As soon as you get up, that way when you get home from the gym or whatever you're doing in the morning, you don't have this unmade bed and luring you back to lay down for another 20 minutes. Make your bed first thing in the morning and just see what ripple effect that has on other things that you're doing throughout the day, that other maybe tasks that you need to do that you need to be consistent about. You're starting your day off with a small win. Let that ripple effect carry you through the morning and hopefully through the entire day with just training yourself to appreciate those little things and how they really do start to add up and take meaning.
I'm someone that never used to make my bed. And a lot of these positive changes that I've had in my life, you, Adam, have been the one that's prompted those through just conversations or suggestions. I never used to be a daily reader. I am now. I read. In fact, I'm always constantly reading 2 books, one in the morning, one in the evening. I make my bed every single day, even though both my Labradoodles hop in my bed after I make it and mess it back up again. So I actually make my bed like 4 times a day. I'm a morning person now. I never used to be a morning person. So just, yeah, and that's my other message. Like, always be careful of what you're telling yourself and what beliefs you have about yourself. Are they limiting? Because if you have the desire and the goals, and if you want to better yourself, you can. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it is going to be worth it, and you can do it. I used to think that you were born with these skills. Like, you were either a good communicator or you were social. That was something that you were born with. You knew how to talk to people or talk to girls, or you didn't. And that's just not the case. These skills can be developed in every area of your life. So if there's something that you want to improve on, just know that you can develop it.
And by doing so, you get the added benefit of confidence. When you do
Yes.
things day in and day out, consistently, something that might have seemed very scary and, given you a lot of anxiety and just something you didn't want to do at all, give it a couple weeks and now all of a sudden it's just part of your daily routine and you don't even think about it. It's just having that confidence through the repetition, through the consistency.
You become a very confident, powerful, formidable person who's extremely resilient.
Before we close out, I'd love just to also remind our audience, you guys, if you have any specific things that you're doing that are monotonous, that you think are moving the needle in the right direction, and you've seen a lot of value and progress from doing these, whatever it is, on a daily basis, share that with us. We'd love just to hear what some of you guys are doing as these monotonous tasks to grow and hopefully succeed.
All right. Well, that is a wrap for today's episode on the pursuit of progress. We've talked about the power of mastering the monotony, the unglamorous, repetitive tasks that lay the foundation for true success. Remember, it's not about the big, flashy moments. It's about showing up every day, sticking to the process, and trusting that consistency will pay off. And if there is one thing to take away, I hope that you guys take away this, that greatness isn't built overnight, but it is built daily. Start small, stay consistent, and watch the compound effect transform your life. Thanks again for listening. And if this episode sparks something in you, don't forget to share it with someone who needs it or that extra push to stay the course. Let's keep pursuing progress together. We'll see you guys next time.
Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week.